Are you kind to yourself? Do you practice self-compassion? Now, as a man, you may well feel the pressure to always be strong, independent, and self-sufficient. For a lot of blokes, the idea of being kind to themselves sounds a bit, well, fluffy or wishy-washy in some way. Maybe you picture bubble baths or scented candles or incense sticks or just slacking off for the day. But self-compassion is actually about treating yourself with the same respect and understanding you would offer a good friend. There are too many blokes who are way too hard on themselves. So I'm going to break down the myth that self-compassion is soft or weak. It's not self-pity and it's not even being selfish. So what does self-compassion actually mean? What are the skills? Why is it so hard for some men? And how can it actually make you stronger, not softer? Welcome to Man Talk, a podcast of real conversations about life, your life, our life, and the emotional well-being of men. My name is Todd-Collins. I'm the Director of Men and Relationships Counselling. Let's talk about what it really means to be a kinder and stronger man in today's world, starting by how you treat yourself. Thank you for being there. Sit back and relax and join me for this latest episode of Man Talk. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I think I've covered all bases, but in the wrong order. I hope you're well wherever you're listening to me from. This is a solo episode. The last couple of episodes have been a conversation with a co-host, with my good friend Ryan. We've been talking about a few things. So if you've missed those last couple of episodes, there are conversations or co-hosted. Please go back and have a look at them and have a listen. But this is just me on my own today. And we're going to be covering something that I think is really common for blokes in particular, but also for lots of women and couples that I meet who kind of get in their own way. Do you ever find yourself being just too hard on yourself or even other people? Are you like many blokes who for generations have been handed down what is kind of the same old script, which is to man up, push through, and, keep your feelings locked away in some way? Now, I also believe this, like many of us maybe, that real men should not show weakness, that stoicism is our strength, and that asking for help or admitting you're struggling is somehow unmanly. And there are many men that I meet that get stuck in this. They also get to worry about the fact that expressing their struggles or even being kind to themselves will somehow lead to more criticism and even loss of respect from other people. And I've got blokes who have these internalized beliefs that they should always be in control to fix their problems and never show any kind of doubt. And when these guys are facing setbacks, that they then judge themselves so harshly for not living up to basically unrealistic standards. And there are guys who get looped in negative thought patterns from their past, really. Whether they've experienced trauma or failure, criticism can lead to real patterns of self-doubt. And over time, these patterns become ingrained, and they make things like self-compassion feel completely unnatural and certainly uncomfortable. Now, if any of this resonates with you, how does it impact your well-being? For most people, constant criticism of themselves fuels cycles of stress, makes it very hard to relax and feel comfortable with yourself. Harsh self-judgment erodes confidence and certainly self-worth, and for many blokes this leads to the looping feelings of being inadequate. And many men find themselves emotionally isolated because when they're so hard on themselves, they often withdraw from people, and they believe that no one else will understand or accept what they're struggling with. Now, learning to break these patterns involves firstly recognizing that you're lost in them and maybe beginning to evaluate if it's working for you or getting in the way. Now, in many of my conversations with blokes, when I say to them, you're being way too hard on yourself, most blokes will say, yes, I know. I should be kinder to myself, but I don't know where to start. So being kind to yourself is such an important part of building resilience. It really helps to build better relationships and, most importantly, to build a healthier mindset. So whether you're facing tough times at the moment or you want to show up a bit more fully in your life, this conversation about self-compassion is for you. So let's start by unpacking, what did this actually mean? The word compassion comes from the Latin meaning to suffer with. So compassion begins with empathy, and empathy evokes thoughts and feelings that acknowledge and connect with the suffering of other people. It's when you say to someone you care about, "I know how you feel." And along with empathy, compassion requires intention and action to help alleviate that suffering. It's when you can say, "I can relate to how you feel, and I'm here because I want to help you." Now, blokes, stereotypically, of course, we want to fix things. We want to devise a plan to get us through and so we can feel better. Compassion requires something a little bit different. It basically is saying to ourselves, we don't have to solve the issue for someone else. We just have to be with them while they're struggling. It may be that you have to sit silently with a person you care about who for some reason is annoyed or angry with the world. Or maybe it's being close to somebody while they're crying and not telling them to stop. In many ways, compassion in some ways is doing less and actually being with yourself or with an other more. And yes, it can sometimes feel like you're not doing anything at all. But even more challenging is how you shift your focus towards yourself and build your self-compassion. Self-compassion is about recognizing when you're struggling, giving yourself permission to feel and not beat yourself up for being a human being. It's not about avoiding responsibility. It's not about ignoring your mistakes. It's actually about learning from them without ripping yourself apart. So think about it. If your best mate came to you feeling down or for some reason is struggling in his life, would you just tell him to harden up and man up and push through? Or would you just listen, support him, and help him to get back on track? So why do we sometimes find it so hard? What are some of the most common misconceptions about self-compassion, and are there actual skills involved? For some people, taking care of others can either be hard or relatively easy depending on what's going on in their lives and the kind of relationship you have. But for most people, focusing and taking care of ourselves can sometimes seem a little self-indulgent. Now, there are some common misconceptions about self-compassion that I think are really important, because they get in the way of embracing the practice. Now, one of those is that self-compassion is weak or self-indulgent, and that it actually promotes a victim mentality. Now, self-compassion is actually a sign of strength because it takes courage to confront your own vulnerabilities and treat yourself with the understanding or the kindness that you'll give to other people. Another misconception is that self-compassion is selfish or narcissistic in some way, and that it detracts from your ability to care for other people. But the research actually shows that self-compassion is positively associated with the skills or the attitude of empathy and compassion, and leads to what's called pro-social behavior, because it enables you to care for yourself and to care for other people more effectively. So what are the skills that you need to become more self-compassionate? The first one is something that I was talking about earlier, which is about challenging negative self-talk. So if you mess up in some way or you're feeling down, we need you to swap the harsh self-talk for more supportive words. So, for example, and you may find yourself doing this, or you may be good at this, I don't know, but instead of saying to yourself, "I'm useless," try saying to yourself, "Well, I've had a tough day and a rough day, and I'm doing the best I can. Negative self-talk can be damaging to self-esteem and confidence, and it will also increase anxiety and stress and often depression as well. So the task here, or the skill, is to challenge negative self-talk. You need to become aware of it first. So start to pay attention to whatever thoughts you have that come to your mind whenever you face a difficult situation in your life. Once you've identified the negative talk, challenge it and ask yourself this question: is this true? Is there evidence to support the thought? And what would you actually say to a friend who had the same thought? So the task is to reframe negative self-talk into something more positive. It's replacing negative statements with something more productive. Now, the second skill, which is an interesting one because it's kind of broad, but it's also quite specific at the same time, it's called common humanity. Now, basically what it means is the capacity to recognize that everybody experiences struggles or setbacks and emotional pain. So instead of feeling isolated in your own difficulties, you actually understand that struggle or suffering is a universal part of being human. So this perspective, if you can take it, actually reduces any kind of self-criticism. It reduces shame, and it can make it much easier to respond to yourself with more resilience and more kindness. So why does it matter so much? Because essentially, when you can acknowledge common humanity, you will realize you are not alone in your challenges, and you'll accept that struggle is part of life. It's not a personal failing. And most importantly, that you can connect with others much easier as you see that everyone has their own battle. So it's kind of putting it into perspective. Some examples, some common ones that come into my conversations with blokes are the pressure to provide. You know, the feeling of stress about work or money or both. And some men find it very easy to think that, well, I'm the only one who's holding it all together. Now, the common humanity response to that would be saying something like, well, many men feel the pressure. I'm not alone in facing the challenges, and it's okay to reach out for support. Another one that comes into my conversations a lot is about relationship conflict. After an argument with your partner, for example, maybe you feel like you've failed, or that your relationship is particularly unique in some way. Hello. I'm sorry for interrupting this episode. I'm just dropping by, firstly, to ask you a question. What do you think the most common complaint most men and women make about their relationship? Well, it's communication problems. You thought I was going to say sex, didn't you? Well, that is actually a close second. But so many men in particular complain that they get tongue-tied and twisted when trying to communicate or open up with their partner, and often they end up shutting down or just saying the wrong things. So what is good communication in a relationship, I hear you ask? I'm so glad that you did. Well, I've actually created a free guide, Better Conversations for Blokes. It's a quick and easy guide to improving communication in your relationship. It's got heaps of tips and tricks and skills and actual phrases that you can use right now. It's made just for you. You can get the free guide in the show notes. Finish the episode and check out the show notes and find a way of improving your communication with your partner right now. The common humanity response really is every couple has disagreements. Conflict is a normal part of relationships, and working through conflict is an important part and a normal part of the process. Another classic one, of course, is about parenting. If you've got kids, you may lose your patience with your kids and feel guilty about it. And you may start thinking other fathers must have figured it all out. And of course, the common humanity response is, all parents have tough days. Struggling does not make me a bad parent. It makes me human. Now, these are all perspective-taking techniques. Another classic one for blokes is the emotional struggle. If you're feeling anxious or sad or overwhelmed and you believe you should just be able to tough it all out and just have all your shit together. The common humanity response, of course, is, well, everybody experiences tough feelings at times. It's normal. And I need to give myself permission to feel and to process them. So in some way, this skill and attitude is about recognizing that common humanity can help you to break the cycle of any kind of isolation and certainly self-judgment. It encourages you to treat yourself with the same understanding and support that you would give a mate. Now, there are a couple of more skills that I think that are also really essential to have when it comes to cultivating self-compassion. As well as using the skills of challenging negative self-talk and understanding the concept of common humanity, another skill that helps to develop self-compassion is about how you're paying attention to what you're feeling without ignoring it or blowing it up out of proportion. It's about being more mindful. So it's the skill of noticing your emotions, naming them, and allowing yourself to feel them without any judgment. Now, this takes practice, but when you're doing it, it will help you to respond more thoughtfully and not react impulsively. So this practice of being present is all about trying to sit with yourself regularly, and it will help you to become more self-aware and also develop a more compassionate attitude towards yourself. Now, there are some really good mindfulness meditations out there. There are apps out there, or you can purchase a particular mindfulness-based audio where it cultivates compassion as a skill. So if you find something out in the marketplace, they're not particularly expensive. You can listen to it every single day as a way of practicing being more mindful. Now, on top of that, the fourth skill is about how you do emotional check-ins with yourself. I want you to consider how you do this every single day. Take 5 minutes a day to ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Have no distractions, nothing that gets in the way, just a bit of honesty of self-reflection. Give yourself permission to feel whatever it is. And remind yourself the common humanity, if you're having a tough day, that it's okay to have a tough day. It's also okay to need support if you need it, and which is the component around making sure you're not doing all of this on your own. If you need to have a conversation with your partner, or with a friend, or you get yourself some professional help with a counselor, do not do this all on your own. Now, the reason why these skills are really important, and I've just really touched over the surface of them: challenging negative self-talk, common humanity, mindfulness, emotional check-in. They are all designed to help to handle stress, to bounce back from setbacks and connect more deeply with yourself and the people you love. It's not about being soft. It's about being authentic and ready to support yourself as well as the people that you love in your life. Now, another focus that's really significant to think about in terms of prioritizing self-compassion is having a look at your daily habits. Now, daily habits are a bit similar to the skills that we were just talking about, but it's more than just that. It's also about routine. There are certain kind of routines that can be quite useful in terms of self-compassion. It really is about specifically how you're taking care of yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally. So any kind of activity that you're doing that helps you feel more relaxed, more refreshed, and more energized. Now, at the risk of sounding like your mother or a parent, some of these includes things like getting enough rest or enough sleep. So just have a think about how much sleep are you getting? Are you getting, or you're aiming for 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night? Or whatever kind of sleep you're having, are you feeling well rested and alert? Are you eating well? You know, the classic thing of a balanced diet, plenty of fruits and veggies and grains and lean proteins, all of which, whatever you're eating, needs to help you feel better physically and mentally. And the classic question, of course, how much exercise you're getting. You know, and I know regular exercise is really good for stress, but it also improves mood and it will boost your self-esteem. And most significantly, similarly to what I was talking about before about being more mindful, are you taking enough time to be more centered and more present in your daily life? Are you taking those moments every day? This is all about habit and routine as well as the skill. The other part of your habit or routine is about how you're setting boundaries. Now, boundaries are about how you protect your time and your energy as well as your well-being. Now, some examples for my way of thinking would be, are you saying no enough? You know, it's okay to say no to invitations or requests of people or tasks sometimes that do not align with your values or your priorities. So how much boundary are you setting for yourself? Are you able to prioritize those self-care activities by making sure that you set time in your day or your week to look after yourself? That is about setting boundaries. It's also about limiting exposure to anything that's negative, avoiding spending time with people or in certain environments that drain your energy and negatively impact your well-being. The other part of your habits is about the kind of relationships you have. Building supportive relationships is really important. If you can surround yourself with people that are really good at empathizing with who you are, your struggles, and can support you through difficult times, those are the kinds of people you will need. People that are good at empathy and understanding. What kind of mentors do you have in your life that guide you, that give you support? Mentors are really valuable for advice and perspective taking, can help you to navigate situations in your life, whether that be mentors that are good for you professionally or mentors that are good for you personally as well as physically. Most significantly about habits and routines is that you're looking after yourself when you are experiencing failure, that you're not getting lost in the negative self-talk, that you're actually able to see failure as the opportunity that you need to keep learning and keep growing. And that you can find yourself in some ways forgiving yourself when you do make mistakes. If you can remember the common humanity of that everybody fails at some point, so you can actually find that perspective, that habit almost, in your routine of life to be kinder to yourself when you're going through difficult times. What really stands out for me when I look at self-compassion is that it can remind me that, essentially our self-worth is not always tied into what we did or what we didn't do. That sense of self does not have to be at risk because we didn't accomplish something, or we made somebody upset, or we made a mistake. We can feel guilty for sure about hurting somebody. We can be angry that a plan didn't work out the way we thought it would. But self-compassion actually allows us the freedom to try again. It can actually break us out of any kind of confinement of being perfect. And we don't need to punish ourselves to learn from the mistakes that we make. Self-compassion is not just about being kind to yourself during the tough times. That is important, but it's also about sustaining your own personal growth and your own progress. It's about giving yourself the support you need just to keep going, to show up completely and fully in your own life, including healthy routines on a regular basis. Practicing self-compassion can help you navigate the setbacks in your life with a bit more grace and a bit more ease. So if you're learning from failure and you're forgiving yourself and you're sustaining your own growth, you will develop a much more compassionate and resilient mindset. If this episode sparks more of your interest, please check the show notes for some of the products available and the programs that can help you make sense of yourself and your relationship. If this episode really sparks an interest in working on self-compassion, there's a booking button in the show notes where you can work with me one-on-one. Thank you for listening. If you do like what you hear, please tell your mates, give me a review wherever you found the podcast. It really helps. And I'll catch you again in the next episode of Man Talk.